Hi, I'm Chris. I'm also known as Harm. I've been a coach at PFM for over a year now, and in that time I've seen a lot of new skaters, and I've gotten a lot of very similar questions, so I figured I would do kind of an FAQ thing and hopefully answer a lot of these very common questions up front, so that we're going to go through basically the parts of a skate and how to do some basic adjustments so that when you're out at an adult skate you can start to make your skates more comfortable and work better for you. So we're going to go around the skate first and talk about the different adjustments that can be made. The first, and probably the most obvious, is the boot. I think most people know how to operate shoes, so I won't go into too much detail. I will say it's important to get fitted for skates. If at all possible, go somewhere where they have a lot of experience. It'll make a huge difference. They shouldn't necessarily be super comfortable, because they do need to be tight enough to stay on your feet while you're doing all sorts of crazy stuff with your feet, but they also shouldn't be so uncomfortable you're going to hate them, hopefully. So the different skates, the skate boots, there is some differences, but they're pretty minor. They're taller, they're shorter. This one has a hard toe box, in case people kick me there, and also when I'm dragging the front of my skate, or when I'm sliding around, it protects the skate, so that's nice. But all in all, this is more about fit and how you like them than anything that is superior to one from another. So that's just a matter of trying them on, and I can't suggest enough going to a place. We're lucky in Seattle to have Fast Girl. There's a lot of people there that can help with that. So the first thing that I'll go through is the first item, other than your boot, is the toe stop. Now your toe stops, a lot of people when they first start skating want to drag them to slow down. Do not drag them while you're going forward. These are meant to use when you're going backwards. So to actually use them, you have to turn around and drag them backwards. You can run on them, you can put your weight on them and move forward, but don't use them as stopping tools while you're moving forward. It puts your ankle in a very unfortunate position when you're skating along. You're dragging your toe stop. If somebody falls on your foot, really bad day. So as far as toe stops, to adjust them, it's actually pretty easy. So with this guy, you need an Allen wrench. There's a little spot on the side. You stick that in there, and you loosen it up, and from there you'll be able to loosen the toe stop. You'll be able to spin it in and out, just like a faucet. It spins one way or the other. And you'll be able to see which way it goes, lefty loosey, righty tighty. Once you get it to the height you want, you tighten that little Allen wrench, that little Allen bolt down, and that's all it is for that. For a regular, most pair of skates that you'll find, especially if they're your first or second pair, it's probably got a lock nut on them. The lock nuts, you'll get one of these wrenches, or there's aftermarket wrenches if your skates didn't come with it. You just loosen it up, just loosen that lock nut up, and you can twist it in and out just like the other one. And this is what it looks like if you take them off. And it's only 3 parts. There's the toe stop, and there's the nut that holds the stop tight. And then there's a lock washer, and lock washers aren't regular washers. They're not flat. They're usually, I don't know if you can see this, they usually have some cup shape to them. They're cone shaped, or they're a little bit wavy. And the reason this works is when you put it in between there and your plate, as you tighten it down, you tend to crush it. You tend to squish it flat, so that the washer is always trying to push apart. So that is what keeps the toe stop from backing out. When you tighten it all the way down and it's pushing, it's trying to get back to its original shape, it's keeping that lock nut from backing back out. And if you get some toe covers, like a lot of people when they get new skates, they have toe covers that go on the front. If you get that toe cover in between this nut and the plate, this washer isn't going to be able to do its job. It's not going to be able to get crushed down flat, it's not going to push back, and your toe stops will keep coming out. So if you have that problem, that is probably a good chance that that's why, if you have toe covers. So if you have toe covers, make sure you pull this washer and the nut off, and put the toe cover on, and then put the nut on, so that the toe cover will be in between here, not in between where the washer is. So, and there are also different types of toe stops. These are gum balls. These are a little bit stickier. These are a little bit harder. You know, I would worry about that later. Most people haven't even gotten to toe stops yet, so so don't worry about what kind you have right away. Once you start being able to do toe stops, you'll find that you either like them because they're too sticky or not sticky enough, and then you can start to make changes on there. So the next thing is axles. Your axle goes right in between your wheels, and that's what your wheel actually rides on. You can see it poking out of this little guy on the sides here. So in the middle of the wheel, that little stud that's poking out on each side, that is the edges of your axle. So that's all that is, very simple. Your plates is this metal guy right in here, and they're made of metal. They're also made of nylon. The less expensive skates a lot of times have nylon, but don't think this isn't plastic. This is not going to break. They are a little bit bendy, but as a new skater you're not going to notice something like that, so I would not worry about whether your plates are metal or nylon. There are some people that, you know, they have opinions either way, but like I said, for your first year, maybe year and a half or more, don't worry about it. As long as you get like a decent pair of beginner skates, the plates will be fine for what you're going to use them for, so don't worry a lot about that. I see people talking about metal plates all the time. They're so cool and shiny, but you know, it's not going to make that difference when you're new. So one thing that I noticed really quickly when I'm looking at people's skates and I'm checking to see if their trucks are too tight, which we'll talk about in a second, I do notice that sometimes, you know, one of their wheels, or sometimes all of their wheels, are super tight, and you can see most skate wheels, they're just going to keep spinning and spinning and spinning. This guy is really super tight. Sometimes they come like that. Sometimes you're playing with your skates and you mess things up. It's really easy to fix. So you adjust the tightness with this little nut on the side here. And in this case, you would just loosen it until it spins freely. Everybody does this differently. Personally, when I adjust my own wheels, I adjust it until I can just barely pull. I'm pulling on the wheel out and in. I can barely feel it click. You can actually hear it make noise. Some people like it tighter than that. They'll actually tighten it down until there's no free play in between the bearing and there. So, you know, I like it to be a little bit loose because it's definitely better a little bit too loose than if it's too tight. It tends to pinch those two bearings together. So if your wheel, it's pushing in, and it'll push on those bearings on the sidewall rather than where it's usually getting most of the force. And it'll actually pinch it so hard that it'll slow the wheel down and stop it. So that's really easy. You just adjust that in and out. Don't be afraid to adjust that. These nuts that are on here are different. They're not regular, just regular nuts that you buy off the shelf. They are actually locking nuts. They have a strip of nylon in them, and that keeps them from just backing out. So they can be a little too loose. They're not going to fall off. Your wheels are not going to fall off if they're a little bit too loose. Let's see. The next thing is the trucks. And your trucks are these guys right here in between each wheel, and they are what allows your skate to turn. Your skates should be able to turn without lifting up your feet, and you do that by pushing on the inside and the outside of your trucks. They're actually just like a skateboard. So when you push in, it tends to make the truck turn your skate one way or the other. So adjusting them is actually very easy too. You adjust them with this, same as your wheels, you have a little locking nut right here, and it also has nylon in it. It's not going to back out unless you loosen it all the way. So to loosen it, you would loosen lefty loosey, righty tighty. You would turn it until your trucks are looser. So the way I do this, when you first begin, you know, you're all over the place. You tighten them, you loosen them, it scares you, you tighten them back up. So you start to forget where you are, where you're at as far as how tight they are. So what I do is I loosen this nut until I can just barely turn this washer. So I don't know if you can see that. There's a washer right underneath. You can turn it with your my bare fingers. Just I can turn it, no problem. So what I do is I loosen that nut until I can just barely turn this, and then I know that's my starting point. So for me personally, that's where I leave them all the time. But if you're just starting out, you might want them tighter. So if you've monkeyed them around and you have no idea where they're at, loosen them until you get to this point, and then try turning it half turn in. Do that to all of them so that they're all even. That way you have a good starting point. So if that's not enough, do the same thing but turn them all one full turn in. That is probably the quickest and easiest way that I've found to get them all exactly the same once I'm screwing around with them. Like, because especially when you're in the beginning, you have no idea. You'll loosen them, it's too loose, it scares you. You'll tighten them back up. You start to forget where you are very quickly. So that is a very easy way to start off from zero. So they all don't have to be exactly the same. One of mine's slightly different than the others. So I'm going to go through really quickly and talk about pads. So some of these are my outdoor pads. This is an outdoor knee pad of mine. You can see how much or how little padding it has. All this does is keep me from skinning my knee, basically. That's all it does. It's not going to protect you from repeated falls on your knees, which you have to be able to protect your joints because you are going to fall a lot. So these guys you can get pretty much anywhere that sells skates, scabs, or gladiators. I don't even know if I've seen those in a while. So they're just gaskets. They're just rubber foam things, and they have about as much padding as that knee pad did, but this is what goes on under my knee pads. These are my pads that I use for when I'm actually skating, and I think there's a good chance I'm gonna fall down, which is, you know, derby. And you can see how much more padding between the two of those that I have. And you can't have too much, honestly. If you're gonna skimp anywhere, don't skimp on your knee pads. I really messed one of my knees up because I had cheap knee pads and they moved around a little bit and I fell on it wrong. So I can't say enough, don't skimp out on your knee pads. Wrist guards are the same thing. You're going to fall. Human nature is that you're going to try to catch yourself with your wrist, which is bad. You're going to put your hands out. So you need something that's going to keep your wrist in the right position and not break it. So you can see these are my outdoor pads again. All this does is keep me from skinning my hands horribly if I fall. It's not going to protect much else. And these are my derby wrist guards. They go all the way around my wrist. There is a big plastic plate here. It's a lot more protection, and I worry a lot less when I have these on. Same with helmet. You do have to replace them every now and then, or at least the foam lining inside. You should get the lining, the ones that you can replace the lining in. Do not get a single impact helmet. Those are for, you know, when you're just doing like maybe bicycle or something, you fall once, you have to replace your helmet. If you want the best helmets, I definitely recommend hockey helmet, because those people fall on hard ice all day long, so they probably know how to build a good helmet. So that is my 15-minute limit. I may do another one of these if there's enough questions. Other than that, just stick with stuff. Don't be afraid to mess around with things, and definitely ask questions from people you trust if you have them.